Here we go, friends. David Paulides, Canada Missing Project. This is Huck, the executive producer of the show. How you doing, Huck? You doing good? Side eye. She's doing good. She's happy, healthy. She's getting her big winter coat right now, so she's looking all heavy, but she's really not heavy at all. But she's been running around out there at 28 degrees this morning, loving it. And she gets mad when I don't show this, so I'll show it just so to make her happy. This is her channel, Huck TV. She is the executive producer, and we'll get on with the show. And friends, that movie poster right there is a biggie. Just to remind you, the premiere of American Sasquatch, Man, Myth, or Monster will be November 28th at the Tacoma Convention Center, downtown Tacoma, Washington. We have a huge venue because we know how many people are going to be there. We've set up 2 tiers. One tier is so everyone can get it, $25. And the other tier is a VIP tier if you want to get some extra stuff and hang out and etc. It's going to be a different kind of premiere. It's one I like to do. We're going to play the movie, and then after the movie, we're going to have some special guests, bring them up on stage, we'll talk, and then we'll have a lengthy Q&A with the audience. Any questions you have, we'll have a great group there to answer them. And I want you to know that this movie took 2 years. It was a lengthy endeavor. The reason it took so long is it took a while to get the people that I wanted on film. Not everyone is available easily. A lot of people all over the world. And we've got some people in there that have never gone on and spoke on a documentary before. And I'm shocked that they agreed to do it. So I'm humbled that they did. I've had some people that are way smarter than me look at the film and say, Dave, it's going to be really, really good. So let's hope so. But American Sasquatch, November 28th, Tacoma Convention Center. You go to missing411.com, my website, go to the online store and get your tickets now. I've told you before that I'm a big fan of Nexus magazine. I love it. And they have some of the best articles in it imaginable. I mean, if I was the editor, I'd pick out the articles that they do because they're interesting. One this month was called Health Effects of Exposure to UAP and UFOs. Now that I find interesting. This report presents credible evidence that UAP encounters can cause physical, physiological, and psychological harm, with electromagnetic radiation often a likely mechanism. Yet most medical professionals remain unaware of how to recognize or respond to such cases, and key research conducted under U.S. government programs remains classified. To address this, we recommend independent research, clinical training, and creation of specialist referral pathways. Greater transparency and cooperation between military and civilian health systems is urgently needed. Above all, UAP must be recognized as a legitimate public health issue that must be tackled with scientific rigor, and those affected must be treated with care and respect. Electromagnetic radiation. This discussion was had several times during this movie. The chief videographer on this movie and my other Missing 411 past movie is a guy who's super smart. And at one point we were filming this, and multiple cameras, multiple video and audio failed. And he said, hey, he's been doing this for, I don't know, 15 years. And he goes, that's never happened. He goes, and we're in an area that had a lot of activity. But it didn't just fail once. It failed multiple times. Now, evidence of UAP comes not only from the United States, they are also reported worldwide. In the UK, for example, the Condon report was released in 2006 following a Freedom of Information Act request. The study, begun in 1996, drew on approximately 10,000 sightings and reports collected by D-155, a branch of the Directorate of Scientific and Technical Intelligence within the Defense Intelligence Staff, itself part of the Ministry of Defense in the UK. Although the report downplayed both the defense threat and the likelihood of extraterrestrial origin, it concluded that, quote, UAP exist is indisputable, credited with ability to hover, land, take off, accelerate, etc. Kind of things we all knew. UAP sightings and encounters. In this section, we note some of the most prominent UAP sightings and encounters, presenting them from the lived experience of those reporting. Valensole, 1965, a French farmer named Maurice Massé, 41, reported that on the 1st of July, 65, he encountered two very pale, child-sized, large-headed beings, some sort of large round vehicle that had landed in his lavender field outside of Valensole, southeast France. Walking toward them, Massé got within 25 feet before one of the beings pointed a tube at him, temporarily paralyzing him. According to researcher Brenda Desler, Massé refused to discuss the physical effects on him in detail, but it is clear he suffered from extreme exhaustion lasting several months. Other sources suggest he had disturbed sleep patterns and began to suffer from nightmares after sleeping for 12 hours and feeling very sleepy. In addition, he complained of apathy and a lack of interest in life. There is a suggestion passed on by Massé's wife in conversation that when he was paralyzed, he received some important information from the creatures. Was this information what this information was? Massé never said. Did that information lead him to apathy? Falcon Lake, 67. 20th of May, 67, industrial mechanic Stefan McCulloch, 51, prospecting for quartz and silver in Manitoba, Canada. According to a 2017 CBC News article based on the book When They Appeared by Stan McCulloch and his son Chris Rutkowski, Mr. McCulloch looked up and saw two cigar-shaped objects with reddish glow hovering about 45 meters away. One descended, according to his account, landing on a flat section of a rock and taking on more of a disc shape. The other remained in the air for a few minutes before flying off. He claims he went closer and noted the smooth metal of the ship with no seams. He then looked into the bright doorway, pulling on the welding goggles he used to protect his eyes while chipping at rocks during prospecting. He reached to touch the craft, which he said melted the fingertips of his gloves he was wearing. Shortly afterward, he was struck in the chest by a blast of air or gas that pushed him backwards and set his shirt and cap ablaze. He ripped away the burning garments, and the craft lifted off and flew away. Disoriented and nauseous, McCulloch stumbled through the forest and vomited. He was treated at a local hospital for burns to his chest and stomach that later turned into raised scores in a grid-like pattern. In the following weeks, he also experienced symptoms including nausea, headaches, diarrhea, and blackouts. He also reported weight loss and recurrence of burn marks. Well, that's not good. That almost sounds like radiation to me. The Cash Landrum Incident, 1980. On the evening of the 29th of December 1980, Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Colby Landrum, Vicki's grandson, reportedly encountered a diamond-shaped UAP on a deserted road in southeast Texas. The blinding light hovering over Betty's car made it impossible to continue driving, so Vicki Landrum and Betty Cash got out of the vehicle to get a better look. Immediately, they noticed intense heat, and their faces felt as if they were burning. The craft was 130 feet away and just above the trees. It then moved away at a high speed, followed by 23 low-flying helicopters with U.S. military markings. On getting back to the car, Vicki Landrum touched the dashboard to steady herself and left a handprint. In the aftermath, all three experienced severe health problems consistent with high levels of radiation exposure. Symptoms included burns, eye inflammation, hair loss, diarrhea, vomiting, extreme weakness. Betty Cash, who had the most direct exposure, had recurrent hospitalizations and eventually developed breast cancer. The Landrum's health was somewhat better, though reportedly both suffered lingering weaknesses, skin sores, and hair loss. In September 91, the Cash's personal physician, Dr. Brian McClellan, told the Houston Post that her condition was a textbook case of radiation poisoning, comparable to being 3 to 5 miles from an epicenter at Hiroshima. However, Brad Sparks, an aerospace researcher who examined the case for MUFON, determined that the type of radiation was non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation, not ionizing radiation, the only kind causing radiation sickness. Parentheses, infrared, microwave, and UV radiation, as well as visible light radiation, do not and cannot cause radiation sickness. He suggested there could have been some kind of radiomimetic effect in which substances produce similar effects to ionizing radiation. However, no definitive connection has been established. Cash and Landrum sued the U.S. federal government for $20 million. However, persuaded by the testimony of officials from NASA, Air Force, Army, and Navy that no agency of the government possessed any such UFO and that no military personnel had operated any of the reported helicopters. Give me a break. That gets me mad. You know? When members of the public get sick when our government is involved in something and they won't admit it, that gets me really mad. Colores, 1977. In mid-77, newspapers in Para and Maranhão, Brazil, were covering persistent reports of mysterious lights that were causing deaths and hallucinations. People who had come into contact with the phenomena were experiencing symptoms of generalized paresis, incomplete paralysis, hyperthermia, headache, superficial burns, intense heat, nausea, body tremors, dizziness, asthenia, weakness, and tiny holes in the skin. According to news reports of 2016, bright objects of differing shapes, sizes, and colors were said to have been flying at low altitude, just a few meters above the tops of trees, and firing light beams at people on the ground below. The beams gave off intense beams of radiation that caused puncture marks and lesions, with some reporting to local media at the time that it felt like a heavy weight pushed against their chest. A report into the claims made by the victims stated the beam was about 7 or 8 centimeters in diameter and white in color. It never hunted for them, but hit them suddenly. When they tried to scream, no sound would come out, but their eyes remained open. The beam felt hot, almost as hot as a cigarette burn. Describing their injuries, Dr. Cecim Carvalho, the head of the care unit in the village of Colores, wrote, "All of them had suffered lesions to the face or the thoracic area. The lesions, looking like radiation injuries, began with intense reddening of the skin in the infected area. Later, the hair would fall out and the skin would turn black. There was no pain, only a slight warmth. One also noticed small puncture marks on the skin." In a different account from Dr. Carvalho, recorded in a MUFON report in Operation Prado, she refers to 4 cases she had attended where people said they had been attacked by rays of light from an unknown source. Her patients had other symptoms: partial paralysis, clinical picture when having a crisis nervosa where the areas of the attack were the extremities. Her patients reported headaches, debility, dizziness, generalized tremors, and more important, first-degree burns marked by tiny perforations. According to the sex, the males on the neck, jugular, and the women on the chest, only 1 case. Another account from Brazil, published in 2024, recalls how inhabitants of Colores held processions, lit bonfires, and launched fireworks to scare away what they called the creature. According to residents' accounts, the creature appeared at night and could emit an intense light beam, leaving its victims inert, trembling, voiceless, and with other symptoms. Men reported being sucked on the neck and women on their breasts. Cavallo says she was forced by the military to lie about how serious what she termed the suck-suck phenomenon was for the victims. That's not good. Now, why do I tell you that? Why is it important? Because you have the yin and you have the yang. In that report, they kind of highlighted a series of injuries that appear to be caused by the UFO, UAP, whatever. But remember in the UFO connection, I explained how Carl had his lesions on his lungs cured by them. So I'm not sure what to make of it. I wish I did, but I don't. I just give you the facts, let you think what you want. Now, I got 2 cases for you today. 3 people, 2 cases. First incident happened in the Northwest Territories. Far, far northwest Canada. Involves a woman named Anne Kreger, 27 years old, German from Germany. She was going to school, graduate school in Montreal. And another lady named Jane Goodfellow, 35, from Plaster Rock, New Brunswick, also going to graduate school in Montreal. These are the 2 ladies. Goodfellow, 35, Kreger, 27. They went missing July 18th, 1960 at Great Bear Lake. Great Bear Lake. That's quite a lake, let me tell you. Now, look, the whole map here. So this is the U.S.-Canadian border, Spokane, Washington down here. Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan. Northwest Territories. Yellowknife. Oh, I've been there. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But this is Great Bear Lake, a huge freshwater lake. Waters in the Great Bear are considered very cold. It's 200 miles long and 110 miles wide, 12,096 square miles. And it has a huge population of speckled trout. Now, back in over 100 years ago, there was a place there called the Great Bear Mine that they went after silver and radium. Now, Kreger and Goodfellow were experienced graduate students that had worked for the Canadian government in summers past. Both were single, and they were employed for the summer by the Canadian Department of Mines. And they were investigating raised beaches and their association with glacial activity on Great Bear Lake. Boy, this would have been my kind of job if I was a grad student. I would have loved this. So the government pays you. They fly you to Great Bear Lake, and you study why the beaches are raised around the lake. And just in the meantime, I'm sure you can't study all the time. So you throw your pole out there and you catch some giant fish. Oh, I would like that. Now, that location is way, way, way north. And just to give you a little heads up on this, because most people don't even know what I'm going to tell you right now. So Yellowknife. I've been there many times. Now, why would Dave go to Yellowknife? Well, that was a very good question. So after I left being a director at HR in Silicon Valley, I was raising my kids. I was at a lodge in the Yukon Territory with my kids. And I got approached by somebody at the lodge that just got to know me over the week. Said, Dave, this is after I got home in California. he called me. He says, Dave, I got a job offer for you. And we're starting a company, and it has to do with the diamond industry. And we want you to be our business development officer and develop the contacts in the world that we're going to need to make this company a real hard run. I didn't know anything about diamonds. Well, during those 4 years, I learned a lot. Traveled all over the world, South Africa, Canada, all over Africa. And I never knew this before I joined the company, but Yellowknife in Canada is the centerpiece of Canadian diamonds. Oh, and they just aren't the normal diamonds. These are considered blood-free diamonds. Blood-free meaning that in Africa, the diamonds are mined through the blood of Africans, and there's been wars and things about diamonds, and they pay them a pittance to mine, and there's all this negativity with African diamonds. But there's none of that with Canadian diamonds. And so they coined this term, they're blood-free. And we had a way, our company had a way, to put a micro identifying mark inside of every diamond. Every diamond is different. And had a reader to read that mark. So out of Canada, we could mark diamonds leaving Canada. They could always be stated as coming from Canada. Nobody else could do the mark. We have proprietary technology, and it was great stuff. Every place I went in the world, they loved it. I went to Antwerp many times, and the biggest wholesale diamond polishers in the world are there. And people were just very, very kind, very honest. I liked him. Anyhow, I'm getting off track. Yellowknife. Yellowknife is an interesting place. In the winter, it is absolutely freezing, ultimately unbelievably cold. In the summer, it is a lot of water, a lot of mosquitoes, and some huge lakes to go fishing on, and rivers. And then the mines are on the outskirts of Yellowknife. And the mine headquarters are in Yellowknife. That's what I was doing there. So for the women, Yellowknife was a jumping off place for big flights coming in. Well, both women were considered to be experienced outdoorsmen, worked past summers in the bush, and the companies had, the Department of Mines had no concern about them being able to take care of themselves. They were actually presented to the government by an organization called the Arctic Institute of North America. They presented the pair to the Department of Mines as two that would be able to do this work, and they were good, etc., etc. And they were taken to Edmonton, went 1,500 miles north into the Northwest Territory. And both of their specialties were geography, considered very smart. Now the lake, remember I told you it's big, it's also deep, 1,356 feet deep. Yeah, that's deep. Well, the women were taken there along with their 17-foot freighter canoe. Freighter canoe? I had to look it up. A freighter canoe is essentially a bit more stable canoe with an outboard engine. So you could zip around the lake. And it was small enough that it could be transported up there. So they set up with a commercial aircraft company in the Northwest to make drops at certain locations on the lake on certain dates so they could have fresh food, gas, etc. And everything was going well until the women missed a supply drop. Well, right away when they missed it, the RCMP said, oh, it's obvious they drowned. They didn't even do anything. They just said it right off the bat. They drowned. We're not going to be able to find them. Well, the Department of Mines came back right away and said, keep looking. Well, they looked and they found an overturned freighter canoe and their life preservers 2 miles away. Department of Mines came back and said, those women would never be on that lake without their life preservers. So what happened was that they pulled their canoe up, laid their life preservers on top, the wind blew the canoe and the life preservers out. And there's no doubt they're on land. RCMP poo-pooed it and said, no, not a chance. Well, this was on July 18th. The Department of Mines pushed back and demanded a search. And then several days later, the Department of Mines made a presentation in front of the House of Commons in Canada and said that they believed that canoe drifted from shore. And they stated, for this, the women were there to interpret the history of glaciers on the lake. And we have a comfort zone that they are still there on land. And we need the RCMP to continue the search. July 25th, the RCMP was ordered by the government to go out and conduct more searches. And guess what happened? They found a campground. In the area it should have been. On July 27th, the RCMP said that they found the campground and they found a note dated July 8th. It said that the women were going to head to a point 75 miles away where a commercial plane would drop supplies that was scheduled. But the note didn't say they were leaving then. A lot of people thought that that note was part of their schedule. The RCMP came right back again and stated, all indications are that these women are in the water and they couldn't have made it. The negativity was unbelievable. Well, Michael Marsden was the director of Montreal's office of the Arctic Institute. He flew July 26th and he went to Great Bear Lake to help in the search. He found little to no assistance. Nobody really wanted to get involved. He ended up finding nothing, and the girls were never found. What I found interesting about the story was people were adamant that if they were on that boat, they were wearing the life preservers. I tend to agree, because this was not their life. This was their job. They weren't born on the water. They knew it. I just have a feeling they would have been wearing the life preservers. And if the water was really rough, like the RCMP implied, they got into rough water and they lost the boat, I wouldn't be way out in the middle. I would have been real close to shore, right? A lot of things about what the RCMP implied didn't make sense. Now, that far north area, there's a series of First Nations villages around that lake, but they're scattered, and there's a lot of mystery and mystique about that region. And when I first heard the case, I just felt uncomfortable about everything about it. And to think that neither woman would have made it, I don't buy that. I don't buy it. I think something happened. I'm not sure what, but girls were never found. Next case, a very recent case. Very recent. Man's name was Thomas Weightman. Some news articles have said Weightman. Some other articles have stated Reitman. It's Weightman. 78 years old. Said he wears glasses. Went missing October 14th, 2025. He left home at about 10 a.m. on a normal walk that he did every day. He lives in Forest Grove, Oregon, 25 miles west of Portland. This area is very nice. This is Portland, Vancouver, Washington. This is Forest Grove out here. Kind of get the feeling where it's at. It's a farming community. This is the bulletin that was put out by the police department. It's located in Washington County, Oregon. Pacific University campus is in Forest Grove. It was founded in 1850, incorporated in 1872. Population of a little over 26,000 and about 6.03 square miles. Not a big city, but there's a big area around it where it's farming. So at about 10 a.m., he leaves his home, normally back in several hours, daily walk, good health. He didn't return. That night, family calls the police. Officers get there. They explain he had a cell phone. One of those weird times where they had a cell phone. Police call the phone, and surprisingly, they get a contact. But the contact kept breaking up and kept having to call back. Kept breaking up. They did get it out of him. He did say he didn't know where he was. He said he fell in a hole. How could that be? He was last seen at 3:30 that day on a roadway just walking like he normally would. How did he end up in a hole? Doesn't make any sense. Well, temps at night were getting down into the 30s. The PD, meaning Forest Grove, and Washington County Sheriff contacted the cell phone provider asking for data capture, triangulation of where he might be. They were able to determine that he had walked outside the urban area of the city to the northwest. And based on data, they had an approximate location where he might be. And the cell phone company gave the police department this map of where to search. And they thought that he was in this area. Pretty big area, folks. Well, after they couldn't get a hold of him anymore that night, search and rescue started right away. And that included the Civil Air Patrol, Washington County Search and Rescue, Clackamas Search and Rescue, Hillsborough PD, Forest Grove PD, Hood River Search and Rescue, Wasco Search and Rescue, Multnomah Search and Rescue, Marion County, Tillamook, and multiple canine units from other jurisdictions. Friends, this was a huge turnout. 800 search and rescue people showed up from 11 jurisdictions. Now, Washington County and Forest Grove took the lead on it, divided the area that they thought they were searching into grid areas. 800 people to search the area that they had to have had at least the 95% coverage of this area with 800 people. At least. And they probably only said 95% because he wasn't found. There was never any additional contacts by phone, probably because his phone went dead. Now, the CAP, Civil Air Patrol, flew multiple flights for 4 days. Didn't see anything. Canines were put into each grid zone and didn't lead to Tom. That 800 number is a phenomenal number these days. And the reason they got those kind of numbers is because they were within 25 miles of the city of Portland, a huge population base. I've said before that it matters a lot where you go missing. The closer you go missing to a big search zone, the better the opportunity you're going to be found and the more people that will participate. So he stated he fell in a hole. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? And now they're not finding anything. Could the hole be filled with water? I'm just thinking outside the box. And that's why they're not finding him. He was never found. They did a 5-day search and rescue. They never found him. Now, knowing he was so close to that city, I'm sure this just devastated his family. And it leaves a lot of unanswered questions. I've had a lot of people over the years say they were walking through an area and suddenly they didn't recognize where they were. Now, Tom said he didn't know where he was. Now that doesn't make sense because he lived in that area. How could he not know where he was? That doesn't make sense either. The people I've talked to before who said that they were hiking, then suddenly they were in an area that didn't make any sense and they didn't recognize it. They continued hiking, and eventually they said they walked out of it. I've heard that same thing many times. They walked out of it, and suddenly they figured out where they were. Tom walked into something and never could get out of it. Remember that Dale Staling case, Mesa Verde National Park, where a member of the press happened to be walking through an area and heard somebody calling for help and searched and couldn't figure out where the call for help was coming from. Went back and told the head of search and rescue. They said, yeah, the same other people heard the same thing in the same area yesterday and we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Nothing was ever found in that area, ever. So what happened? Where's the calls coming from? A lot of things in our world we don't know a lot about. And each time that these stories where someone's walking and they walk into a zone they don't know, it's always when they're alone. And I find that interesting. Why only when you're alone? Don't know. Friends, you are appreciated. Thank you very much for being here. And remember, kindness, I wish it was contagious. Wouldn't that be cool? Oh yeah, that whole community just has this kindness disease. I think I'd move there. Yeah. I think Huck has a big dose of kindness. She's always nice to me. But it could be because I'm always nice to her. Easy to be kind to animals. You guys take care. Be kind. Be nice. See you soon. Paulides out.